What's up, everyone? My name is Candace Smith, and this is QCP, Queen Connect Publishing. I know y'all like, Candace, you done had 50 million names. Yep, I have. I really have.
And that's your business. And that's your
Yes,
business.
yes, and now we're here, and I'm excited. I'm here with the lovely Chelsea Pugh. Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
Hey, Candace. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited that we finally get the chance to have this chat.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so for you all that do not know, Miss Chelsea Pugh honored me. She honored me and really gave the audience at my book reading and book signing a taste of her beautiful voice, because she read a chapter of my book, A Grown Woman's Game, and you brought it to life.
Oh,
Like,
so I felt like I did the most, but I appreciate it. I'm glad that you were pleased with it. Because
I was. So what, yeah, tell me about how you felt about it. What was your experience of it?
So I actually read the chapter twice. So the first time I read it, I wanted to read it so that my vernacular and everything was together, because I'm really good at tripping over words and stuttering. Ironic for a poet, but that's neither here nor there. But the second time that I read it, I'm sorry, the second time that I read it, well, actually, no, the first time that I read it, it was so easy for me to imagine um, the place, the mosque, because you were so good at detailing like the stone stairs that you guys went up, the how you were in a trance, the guys who were praying and bowing. And I really enjoyed it because I felt like I could connect with it because of my early years in college when I had to take philosophy classes,
Right,
and learning about religion in a whole different light had me like, that's not
right,
something that I learned. Okay,
right.
about Jesus. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was really easy for me to connect with that. So I really appreciate, having that chance, to having that honor to read that for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Look, you brought it to life because, I mean, of course, I was recounting my memory, but when you were reading it, I could just see it so well. It was like I was really transported back to that time. And it was a time when I was in college. It was like really my first year of college.
Hmm.
When you have to take those courses, those just
Yeah.
regular courses, it's not getting into the meat of what you're going to do. It's kind of like you taking your math and your English and, all of that stuff. But when I had a free elective, I would get a religious course
Hmm.
because I mean, that's just me. That's who I am. From the time I was young, I just gravitated towards reading and learning about the Bible, for no reason at all. Like, nobody didn't have to put me up to it or say, hey, read your Bible. Nobody didn't ever have to do that. And so I just kind of had my own study, my whole life going on in the background. And
Yeah.
so I was excited. I'm like, yes, I'm finna learn a lot more about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Child.
Child,
Yeah.
the people is talking, and I had meltdowns, literally, like going into my car crying, leaving college
Why?
crying, reading the books that I remember. I put it in the book where I was sitting with my baby daddy and we would read together.
That
Like,
was my favorite part. When you threw
yeah,
that across the room, I felt that because I probably would have did the same thing.
I was reading that book. It was how the church was built. And
Mm.
it was talking about how they got together and put the Bible together.
Hmm.
And so I don't know what I was thinking up until that point. I guess for whatever reason, I know that I knew that Abraham was the one who put the Old Testament together, the Torah, I guess that's what they
Yeah.
call it or whatever. And so I'm thinking it was more of that as the Bible was being put together, where there was one person that came along and added more books and more books. And
I feel that. Yeah.
yeah, I never knew that, okay, all these years later, you all just set aside and got your scrolls together, got your coffee, your
Yeah.
tea, and whatever you wanted and said,
Correct. And y'all edited the Bible basically.
right, what's going to
Hmm.
go with our narrative? What's going to go with
Exactly.
what we
Exactly.
that was a slap in my face.
But I believe that though, because I for the longest, I think it goes back to what's that movie with Nicolas Cage?
Yes,
I can't think of that
I
movie.
know what you're talking
Code of Da
about.
Vinci or something like that. Da Vinci Code or something like that.
That's
A National
that's
Treasure.
that's not Nicolas Cage, but I know you're talking about.
Maybe it's National Treasure.
National Treasure is
That's
Nicolas.
what it is. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, even going back to that, and hearing about somehow it connects to finding those lost chapters of the Bible. And for the longest, until I experienced those philosophy classes, I didn't want to believe that, because you're not gonna tell me that the Bible that I got is not the Bible. But in reality, these people did put together this Bible, so there is a possibility that there's missing chapters. So
Yeah.
it's not hard to believe. It's just interesting.
It's hard to believe that it has not been, the information was not given to me before that time.
Yeah.
That was disappointing, because that was what hurt me the most, was because I've spent a lot of hours in church, a lot of Bible studies, Friday night services,
Talk about it.
schools, Friday, Sunday night services. I never heard nobody talk about that.
Yeah.
So when I was sitting there and I was reading it, I was getting more and more of a feeling of just, it was everything. Hurt, confusion. What are you talking about? You mean to tell? I felt like I'm going to have to blaspheme against God in this class to say this is the truth. But
exactly.
after further investigation, I said, oh, so that is what happened. And, it took a long time for me to accept that.
But you know how it is in Black churches, though. Like, we get that mindset from the church. So it's like anything that is beyond what we have in this book right here is unheard of. And coming in the church and saying, oh, this lost chapters in the Bible. Who told you that?
Right.
Oh, no, you are rebuked.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I'm not going to say we fear what we don't know, but we are uncomfortable with the unknown.
Right.
We are only comfortable with what's been given to us, and that's the Bible. So I'm sure it's plenty more that we are ignorant on, because of the comfort zone of the Old and New Testament that we have. So I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. If for those that are just tuning in, I'm sitting here with my girl Chelsea. She is a writer for Duval Connect magazine and the publisher of the New Renaissance magazine. Soon to debut, probably by the time this airs, it will be out and available in Duval, Jacksonville, Florida. So you all stay tuned for how to subscribe and how to get a subscription to the New Renaissance magazine. So y'all stay tuned for more details for that. But Chelsea, I asked her, would she do me the honor of reading a chapter of my book, A Grown Woman's Game. It's out now and it's available on Amazon, or you could cash out Fat Tablet 09, and I'll send you a signed copy for $25, boo.
Yes, get your copies.
Yes. So she read chapter 4, which is called Mosque-raid. And I named it that because during one of those religion courses, we were asked, it was only like 12 of us in the class. We were asked to choose a religion, and there was only like 4 classes. The majority of the class session, you were supposed to be really engulfed in whatever religion you were given. So I got Islam. And, I didn't know anything about that. I had a fear of a lot of other religions. I thought it would tarnish me, hurt me
same
way to learn about it. So I would stay clear for the most part. But even in life, I kept brushing up against different people that had different experiences, and they would share it with me, but I was quick to retaliate.
Right.
And let them know, hey, Jesus is Lord.
And he is, and you're not gonna tell me nothing different.
Right. Right. So going into this, I was excited, but I did have that fear still.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a friend that was, of the same religion and her culture as well. And so we would just talk. I hate to even say friend. It was just, we would meet up at the library. We so happened would be in the same places at the same time, and we go to chatting.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about our classes, working with each other, and it turned into something really beautiful because she opened up her life, her home, her church, not church, but her mosque. She opened that up to me and gave me this experience where I could go into the mosque, which that does not happen. I'm not, you know,
Yeah. I was shocked when I read that myself.
yeah, like I don't know, when I think back now, I said, wow, God, you really did something special for me, because that I didn't even know how big of a deal it was until much later on. But basically, she had already invited me into her house. I got to see how they live, which is very different,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. When there are guests, depending on what sex they are, they're separated. The house becomes very separated at times, where the women do their own thing and the men congregate and do their own thing. So even going into her home, it was very different. I was quickly ushered by the men, whatever they was doing, and brought back to the back where the women were together. And normally when I saw her, she was covered, covered where you only saw her face. But at that time, I got to just see her family like I never saw her before. I got to see her hair. I got to
Wow.
see her in just regular clothes, and they were all very beautiful, skin just glowing, and
Mm-hmm.
just a warm welcome, warm personality. And so everything I ate was different. The way they talked, everything about eating was different. It was just different, but they were so warm and welcoming that it was beautiful. I came back several times, for different occasions. I can't recall them, but I was invited back to come back for different things. And so when I told her about this project, then she said, when I was asking her questions about religion, about it, what is, the book that you all read from, and why can't you touch it without washing your hands? Just the things that
Mm-hmm.
I learned, I asked her to go deeper into them. And so she invited me to the mosque, girl.
Wow.
And I said, when I look back, I said, oh my God, I got kicked out. Basically, I got tapped on the shoulder and was like,
Need you
I
to head
like
on out
need you
for
to
me.
head out. Yeah, that's basically what happened, because when I went there with my investigative journalism head on. Like, I'm
Mm.
going to see everything.
Curiosity.
Yes, like I was there for an assignment, so I was not really coming expecting to learn nothing on a deeper level. So when I came, I was just ready to experience it. Like, I'm going to get to see how they worship. I'm going to get to see, is there a pastor that comes up? And, I'm just going to get to see.
Right.
And so before we even get to the front door, they ushered us, the women started going in another direction around the back of the building. So I'm just following along. We go through this side door. It's heavy, hard. We go through this cement looking back hallway, up these hard cement steps. None of the glamour of the front, you
Makes you
know,
yeah.
none of that. And it wasn't even insulated, no carpet, no
Hmm.
AC, no nothing. Then you get up to the top and it opens up to a wide space, and you just keep moving further and further. And then you kind of come into their sanctuary or the mosque, but you're high up above everybody. And so they had the women and the children up there. but they were so quiet. Like the only way you could tell they were there was until you actually got up on it. And they were off in the cut. They wasn't like up on the balcony edge where you could look over. It was something where the edge was kind of high up. So the further back you were, you couldn't see.
Right.
So I'm seeing everybody huddled and I'm thinking, okay, so this is what they do before we start. The women are separated, got it. But before the church service start, we just huddled over here. So I hear the service going. I hear them speaking in another tongue. I can tell things are happening, but the women never moved. They never did anything. A few women got down to pray and kneel. And so I watched that. Okay, no problem. I watched that not watched that. I listened for a while and watched the women do their thing. And so I asked her, I said, well, what's going on down there? And she began to tell me, like, we would never see that. You know, that's the men, they do the worship experience. Excuse me. For the most part, the women worship together and they don't worship, you know, they just pray. They do their prayers.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of taken back by that and I didn't want to accept it. You know what I'm saying? Because I said I came here to see something. I came there to see that and then to be there and then I don't get to see it. It was like,
Exactly. And that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking while I was reading that, because I'm very ignorant to the Islam religion. So reading that also provided me some insight on their religious practices. And that's all I could think about. Like, why is it so in a way that women can't experience, you know, their worship the same way, in the same manner that the men can? I guess that's very privileged of me to think that way, because, you know, I do practice Christianity and we are all equal at the cross, you know. So that did I was taken aback a little bit when I read that.
yeah, I was too. And so I will admit that I got into a rebellious spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is why I kept moving forward towards the balcony, because I said I did not put on this whole guard
Right.
to not see what's going on, because I'm here to do this. And I was thinking you were inviting me to come to see it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I didn't get up on it. See, and I ain't put something in the book. Let me tell you what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I came with other classmates because it was other classmates that got that religion as well. So she gave them the same thing. And so I was close enough to where I could see, not the whole thing, see the men doing what they were doing, but I was not like up on it. When my other classmates saw me doing that, they got emboldened. White people, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So they was up on the thing like this.
Ooh.
And so they was further than me, but at that point, when the lady came, I was the closest one
Right.
for her to reach. So that's why she tapped me. But I was so engulfed in what they were doing. It was so beautiful to me to see the rows of men bowing and praying and putting their head to the ground
Mm-hmm.
in honor of God and in humbleness and in reverence. And, you know, to know that that's what they do in order to keep that humble spirit, you know,
Right.
so that I'm nothing. Like, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of parts of the religion that I've taken away. It's in my heart. It's
Mm-hmm.
in my heart.
That's
It's,
good though.
yeah. Because since that time, there's been moments where I felt led to just lay my head to the ground. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? In prayer. It's not always, it's not 5 times a day. It is just when I have felt led, and I believe that before this experience, when I felt led to do that, I wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let
Ah,
me just bow my head, because that's what we do. We just bow our heads. We
yeah.
put our head to the ground, you
Yeah,
know.
physically humble in posture.
Yes. Yep. So I've taken that, and then so I'm thinking when she was hostile. She tapped me hard. She tapped me
Mm-mm.
hard. It was another lady. It wasn't my friend. She got in trouble. She got really reprimanded, but I don't know if she had permission to do all of the things that she did. So she was tearing up, really crying. She had been crying, which I didn't know what was going on behind me because I was looking out. I was
Right.
just like, I'm not gonna stand over here with y'all. So I started going up there where I wanted to see. So I was
Right.
the first one to do it, and then they followed, and then she came and tapped me and was like, telling me to come out so she could tell me what she wanted to tell me, which was, you was not supposed to do that. Women are not seen. The men can see you.
Mm.
And that's not good. That does not happen in their mosques, where when they're doing their worship, they don't see women during that
Right.
time. So for me to be in a site, and for us to be in sight where they could see us, it was like,
That's a big no-no.
what's going on up there? They hurriedly sent people up there to like get the situation together. So we
Yeah.
were totally asked to come out. We couldn't even stay in there anymore in that part. So I was feeling away. I was like, I had an attitude. I was going down the steps, talking loud, just, it was not good. I was looking back when I was writing this, I was cringing because I could remember my rebelliousness, that I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I didn't come here to not see. Why can't I see? I
Right.
had valid questions, but I was just like loud with them going down the hall. Nobody else was talking. Everybody else was quiet, doing what they're told. And I had questions. So instead of us being ushered out the side door, we ended up going in this other door that led to office type settings, like,
Mm-hmm.
offices and conference rooms. And when we got to one, it was just a big kind of like hall, more like a hall. And it was set up like a church would be, where there's two sides. And so there's one side and one side. We would just ask to sit in the back and wait. We was just asked to sit back there and wait, and told nothing else. And so we just waiting. I'm in my head mad. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just in my head mad. Like, I didn't come here for this. I came here because I got this assignment to do.
Right.
I'm supposed to see how this religion go. And y'all, because what's happening? I was upset. So they didn't say much, but I don't know how I even started really paying attention, because we was further back to where they didn't even know we had been brought in, the people that were at the front.
Okay.
So I'm thinking there's some type of meeting going on, because there's like 4 or 5 people sitting at the very front, and then there's looking like a congregation. And so what I came to realize was that there was a young guy and a young girl, and they were getting ready to get married, and they were discussing the arrangement of their marriage, the contract of it. It was paperwork involved. They were determining how many kids she would have, if the sex of the kids were, if she had a boy first, she may get an extra amount of money for having that boy first. For every boy that she had, she would get, they were calling it something. They were calling it a certain word that she would get. They were talking about, okay, the first 5 years of their marriage, who would cover the mortgage.
Mhm.
And the family members from both sides was like, okay, certain ones would say, I'm going to cover the first 2 years. I'll cover this year. I can do this amount. Just different people was speaking up and saying what they could do happily. This
That's
was
the one. That's the part for me.
Yeah, this was not no serious, like, yeah, we're gonna do this. It was like, well, who's gonna perform the Umshala? Who's gonna be there to do the boom baba? Who's gonna do this? And everybody was like, oh, I'm gonna be there for this. And oh, they like looking at their checkbooks, and husbands and wives like, yeah, we can do this. Even the car expenses.
That is so wild to me.
For the first 5 years, this new married couple, would not have to pay for anything. Whatever money they got, they could save it. As far as the woman that was getting ready to get married, when it came to her giving birth and having children, Lord, the amount of love and support this woman was getting put something in me, because at that time I had 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had 2 baby showers. And I was blessed. I had my first son on his baby shower. I went into labor.
Wow.
And his mama was upset because they're from New York. So she had flew family in from New York to be there. And I missed the entire day because I was at the hospital in labor.
Oh, they should have brought the baby shower to the hospital.
They ain't do that. I was in labor for 27 hours.
Oof.
Then I ended up having a cesarean. But I was blessed. I didn't, for the first year, I don't think I spent a dime.
Wow.
I didn't spend one dime on a pamper, on a wipe, on milk, on clothes, on nothing. I had double everything. Everything.
Yeah.
So I was
That's
blessed.
definitely a blessing.
I went into that not feeling less than. You know what I'm saying? I went into this experience feeling like I'm a blessed woman to have had I made mistakes. I've never been married, but I was still feeling blessed because God still looked out for me and my children.
Right.
But this was another level. This was another level because it wasn't just about the material one. These women have certain duties and responsibilities of caring for that woman's body after she has given birth and during her pregnancy. They have women that perform certain things on them to help them recover mentally, emotionally, physically. They're praying over them. They're just allowing them to relax. So let me talk about what my experience was with that. Because I had a good baby shower. I got a lot of gifts, but I had a cesarean.
Oof.
And so at the hospital, everybody left. My first night after having my son, the nurse came in and told me, you getting up and you going to the bathroom on your own. Don't call me to go to the bathroom. Now, I just had a cesarean, my first one. This was major surgery.
Yeah.
I was in so much pain. They never answered my call. I was in so much pain that I couldn't move. When my doctor came to visit me the next morning, this was at Shan.
Of course it was.
It hurt to cry. That's how much pain it was. From the incision, it's like the pain from the incision, I could feel it all over my body. It was no part of my body that I did not feel pain. And all I could tell her was, I'm in so much pain. when she came to see me.
Mm-hmm.
This woman turned so red, and I could hear her out there. And like, if y'all don't get in here and get her some medicine. So when I got better and I was able to tell her what happened, like she made me walk to the bathroom by myself. She wouldn't give me a hand. She wouldn't hold my hand to the bathroom. That's how I got treated after giving birth to my child.
Right.
That should have never happened.
And like, here's the thing, like for me, what I thought about automatically is, you know, unfortunately, Black women, we go through a lot in that whole process of giving birth, and the whole process of giving birth by itself. I don't have any kids yet, but I watch videos, I talk to people, I do my little research. But
Right,
we go through a lot. And then, you know, to go home, a lot of the times that postpartum depression, you know, hit us like double time. So unity is really, I'm really big on unity, on Black family unity, on just Black unity altogether. And it just really made me like think, why is it that, and it's not even Black people, because Nigerians and other places in Africa, they have dowries, they have weddings where they just rain money on the couples. But it's
right,
like Black American families, we are very to a certain extent, because I'm not gonna say all of the families are, but we don't have that unit where, okay, I'm gonna come over and take care of her. In the morning, you come in the middle of the afternoon, night shift. We're gonna swap. We're gonna switch. Like
right.
we don't have that connection to where we can do that.
Yeah,
Maybe they'll have it for like the first week, but then after that, hey, listen, you chose
right,
to have that baby. You on your own now.
right,
You know, a lot of our culture is based on strength, being strong. And sometimes in some spaces, especially and I can only imagine in that space, it's hard to be strong with a newborn baby, and especially in that space of being vulnerable because we've had to have surgery and other million things that could go wrong during you know, delivery. We're not in a space where we can be strong. So it would just be helpful if the Black American family unit had that same unity that you experienced at the mosque.
right. Yeah, that's really what hit me. Like that whole experience really took my breath away. That was one time I cried in the car on the way home. I cried in the car on the way home because the love that I felt in there, I realized I've never felt. I've never felt that. It was so much love in the room for these people, like for their future, you know, the security of it. Just, I can't even tell you all of the things that they were saying because they was using words for other things. What ended up happening was after that, I had questions. So when we got to talk to the people that was up in the front room, they basically explained why what we did was wrong. You know, it broke it down how, you know, that's their customs, that's their culture. Men worship, women can worship, but they worship separately. And they
Mm-hmm.
consider women being seen as a distraction. And it is, and so they want them to worship separately. And so I had things to say about that. I didn't agree with it because
Mm-hmm.
I was grateful for that time. I asked them about, you know, so why do women have to walk behind you? You know,
Right.
that wasn't necessarily what they practice there. There's different people that practice different things. Of course, even in Christianity, it's like that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, people
Oh
practice
yeah.
Christianity different. So that wasn't really something they did, but they really are big on a hierarchy, you know, and respect for patriarchy, respect for men. And so that's why that happens. And then my question shifted to what just happened in this room? You know, what was that? And so they began to talk about how it was an arranged marriage. And they gave it a name. It was something where they sit down, the families come together to discuss it. and it's very practical. And they had a contract where they both, by the end of it, signed what they all agreed on. And
Wow.
now all they had to do was go be
Get
married,
married. Right.
so it was good and bad. I just left very confused about my life.
Mm-hmm.
I left there with a lot of questions for God about my place in life, because that's what was beginning to happen. Like, I had always saw myself one way because all I knew was my experiences.
Right.
When I started having experiences like that, where I would just be put into someone else's world, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, y'all actually living like this,
Right.
it's weird. Yeah.
It's a different perspective. And so you come back to your world like, well, that was different. I could use some of those aspects in my world. But then
Right.
again, I'm glad that my world is like this. So yeah, just
Yeah.
that reflection part, I can only imagine that was very interesting.
Yeah. I definitely looked at baby showers and things along that line very differently moving forward, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the fact in the book that you said that towards the end of the chat, well, not towards the end, but towards the end of that experience, you stated that you pitied her, but at the same time you envied her as well. I
Mhm.
like the fact that you said that because that kind of put it in perspective, the whole story that you had. So having them, in that religion, having to be behind the male, not necessarily equal, experiencing things very differently from a woman's perspective, but at the same time, having that kind of support from the family. I felt the same way after reading that. You envy that support, but you also pity the
Right.
fact that they're controlled in such a manner.
Right. Yeah. And me and her, we even talked about that. We even talked about it because in a way I wanted to like help her escape. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because she had her reservations as well as, now being in college and wanting to have different experiences. So she was really opening up to me and asking me questions about my upbringing, my religion. And I was open and honest with her and sharing things with her. But see, she couldn't come to church with me though. You know, she
Is
couldn't come.
she couldn't or she just wouldn't?
She couldn't. She had to get permission for
Oh,
everything that she did, everywhere she went.
wow.
And so it was a lot of things that I would ask her, like, come, let's do this and let's do that. She couldn't do it.
What would happen to her if she just did it without asking?
She would never do that. It's not
Okay.
even a question of if she can do it. She know that she can. She would never do that because they really look at respect
Okay.
for their family and for her father. She would never go against what they say. If they say, no, you don't do that, you can't do that, they honor them so much
Mm-hmm.
that even if it's hurting me, I'm going to
You
do it.
still have to do it. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It was, and so we just drifted apart. We ended up drifting apart because I didn't understand everything about it. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And I'm not gonna lie, like we went back and forth, me and her, at a time about things because I would be like, well, why don't you just do it?
Right.
I
Not
have that.
understanding that this is just
Right. Yeah, it's
what
deeper.
she can't do.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I included this chapter in the book because it did teach me a lot of things. The lessons
Mm-hmm.
I learned was to be open. You know what I mean? Be open to new experiences and learning. And I still enjoy what I learned about Ramadan and
Mm-hmm.
what I learned about why they cover themselves on a healthier level, like to protect themselves and, things like that. That was a lot of knowledge I didn't have before. So,
Right. Hmm.
I took a lot of stuff away from that and carried it on into the next parts of my life. And even with the religion part, now I look at that totally different, you
Hmm.
know, and I see why we need to look at the text we've been reading and allowing it to guide our lives. We allow the Bible to guide our life.
Right.
It's a very important text. So I do feel like even now in 2022, we should come together and discuss the Bible and
Oh
discuss,
yeah.
the things that are in there, and does every part go along with the new era that we're walking into,
Hmm.
and the new parts of our life, because those were stories of people that lived during that time.
Hmm.
You got a story, you got a book.
Yeah.
TD
Yeah.
Jakes got books. Joyce Meyer has books. You know, it's other people that God is using present tense for where we
Oh,
live
that's
now,
good.
for the situations we're in now, for how to handle what we're in now. But people don't pay attention to that. They'll try to fit where we are now into the Bible. Is that
Hmm.
working out for us?
That's good, now, Candace.
You
That's
know,
good.
I can't help but think about that and say, you know what, God, maybe I do understand why they came together. Maybe it's a time where we have to, especially as Black people, because the way even the church system has been set up, it does not necessarily benefit us.
Mm-mm.
And so what's wrong with sitting down and saying where we are as African Americans? We the only one who feel less empowered. How many versions of the Bible is there out there?
Ooh, it's a lot of them.
Why are we not empowered enough to say what's for us? Why we got to take what somebody else, they felt like they were capable enough, they were intelligent, smart enough to say, you know what, the New King James Version just isn't doing it for me. I think I'll make a Message Bible.
Hmm.
Why
But I
we?
think it might be out of fear.
Hmm?
I think it might be out of fear because, going back to what we talked about earlier, our African African American Christians are very much so uh old school Bibles. This is the book, and this is what it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who depart from the church, it's kind of like, well, there's no other way to think because this is all that we've been presented. And
Right.
anybody who is in that space with God in the line, it's like they may have that fear of taking something out of context
Mm.
that's in the Bible, or changing it in a way that is not pleasing to what the original message is. So I
Gotcha.
think that, but I think that also works in as well, that fear aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely, because I can feel that, because I was very fearful when I stopped going to church,
Mm-hmm.
because church was guidance for me. It
Mm-hmm.
was my next step, read this, because I was so used to, okay, the message I got on Sunday, now I can go home and, see how God want to use that message.
Apply it.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Wednesday, it was just that guide for me. But slowly but surely, when God began to give me word, especially for me, that it was like in this book, I talked about, I always forget his name. Y'all, I'm not a preacher and neither do I play one on TV. Okay. So it is the king before David.
Mm.
It's the king before David that I talk about, because the people wanted a king so bad. They didn't want a king so bad, but they went into another land and came back to the prophet that was in charge at that time. And they were saying, they got a king to tell them what to do and how to manage this and that. Give us a king. And so the
Mm-hmm.
prophet went back to God. I can't even remember the prophet name because, like I said, I'm not a preacher. God just But this was something that for like 2 years, I could not leave that scripture. I couldn't leave that part of the Bible because God was really showing me some things. And what ended up happening was the story is basically where, okay, God was like, I don't want them to have a king, but if that's what they want, let them know that the king is going to take this from them, going to require that from them, blah, 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 blah. See what they do. They still wanted a king. So God said, tell them to go where to get one. And it ended up being that king before David that disappointed the people because he was disobedient to God. And what God showed me was like during different times in my life when I wanted to go to a church, because see, what happened in that story was at the end of it, God said, okay, you chose the king based off of, oh, you thought because he was tall, oh, he looks like a king, so he must be the king. And then the next king ended up being David, who was a shepherd, they didn't even consider him in the running for being a king. And so God was like, okay, you want somebody to rule over you, but look at what you're looking for in a king. When I was considering a church, I would consider, okay, well, this is the church my mama went to, or this is the church that I know some people in. This denomination matches up, but I wasn't looking at me. Who
That's
am I?
good.
You know,
I can relate to that. I can really relate to that. Because I went to a really big church here in Jacksonville, Shiloh Metropolitan Baptist Church, right there on Beaver Street, probably one of the biggest churches in Jacksonville.
I've been there. I did a
but
dance
I grew up
there.
Yeah, I grew up in that church, from the old sanctuary to the brand new sanctuary that they built years ago. I grew up there. So when I turned around 19, I want to say I was about maybe 19. No, I was probably older than that, maybe 22. I stopped going. I stopped going to that church because I felt like, one, that it became too commercialized. I just felt like it was a show rather than church. And I also felt, because of the magnitude of the church, like the church was huge. It was impersonal. And so that was a very adult space for me, because all of my family went to Shiloh for the most part. So stepping out on my own and deciding to go to another church, that was a very interesting area for me, because I felt like, okay, now Chelsea, you're in charge of what you're being fed,
Right.
So going to the next church that I went to, that was a very interesting space as well. But like you said, it was more like, my best friend going to this church. I did feel it was very, I enjoyed my experience while I was there, but it wasn't what I needed. So now here I am a few years later. I'm at a Methodist church, that's something that's completely different from what I'm used to. It's not a Baptist church. It's not a black church where everybody in there hooping and hollering.
Right.
It's completely different from what I've ever experienced, but it's so much peace. And it's so much, the pastor is genuine, and I just feel like this is the space that I need to be in order for me to grow in Christ. So having that dominion over yourself to decide what's good for you, as it pertains to religion, that's big, because everybody not real, and everybody not feeding what needs to be fed.
Yeah. I was disappointed for a long time in a few churches that I went to. And so I did have that church hurt, still kind of dealing with that, And so when I was going through that part of like just seeing my part in it, of like, okay, you got a choice in this. You're choosing these. You chose your king. You have that option, because the people of God had that option to say, I'm just going to walk with God.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they wanted someone to manage them and just, tell them how to handle things instead of going to God. And I feel like that is what he's wanting, more of, is our relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much this collective thing going on, because then you get lost. You feel like, well, let me tie my life kind of into this message.
Right.
And, without ever seeking, what your own message should be or whatever. So, but that's a chapter for another day. I appreciate you. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I'm so glad that I was just, kind of going back and forth on who to give the chapters to. And I'm so happy that this is like this, because it just fell right into place when you was giving me comments back on it. I literally was, I'm like, oh my,
Oh,
I don't never know if it's gonna connect with people. So that
yeah.
meant, yeah.
Absolutely. Candace, it's always an honor. You are a true writer. And I can feel it through your words, even the other chapters, because we gotta talk about that poem that you wrote about your birthday. Oh, we gotta talk about that too.
What
We
you
gotta
got
talk
to
about
say about it? What you got to say?
Listen,
You ain't never tell me about
listen,
it, because that's what you was supposed to read. Remember?
listen.
I told you that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, "Are you ready?"
Yeah. That was, and I read it. I said, "Oh, that must have been the one she wanted me to be angry about. That must have been the one she wanted me to be angry for." But yeah, that thing, that was a read. That was a read. I felt like that was something that you needed to let go. Like that was something that needed to be written down, even from all those years back. Because that lady really did try you. Like she tried you in the worst possible way.
Yeah. Yeah, for those that don't know, a grown woman's game is, going back over my life, because I would always hear people say that, you ain't grown, you know,
Right.
you ain't grown. And I always had that in my mind, like I can't wait to be grown. You know what I'm saying? Or seeing grown women being able to do certain things that I couldn't do. So when I thought about her, she was such a woman that was different from women that were around me, like church women.
Right.
Not one of those women, she was what we would be like the worldly woman, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I always had that in my mind, like her, my mama, her, women like my mama, women like
Yeah.
her, women like my mama, because although, she to me was very powerful, because you got my dad to
Mhm.
leave my mom, break up our entire family, and you was so bold that you was able to treat me that way.
That was bold. She was bold in all of her evilness, because that's exactly what it was.
Child, I pulled it up. Should I read it?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Read it
Woo.
one time.
Okay, y'all. This is on page 45. And look, I was in a space. That's all I can say. From the death of George and Brenda's daughter, happy birthday to me. This flex is brought to you by my father's mistress, who open-handed slapped me on my birthday when I was 5 years old. Long story short, you were mad that I was happy and loved. I see that now. I didn't before. I owe you though. Somebody tell Elizabeth I want to be a hoe all my life. I think her last name is Goodman that I owe her. It might be on site. You didn't have any mercy for my 5-year-old face. You choked me on a different day. No reason could ever justify why. However, you saw my mama and everything about me and you hated. That's you. That's yours. And you can keep that. Just know I turn up every birthday just for you, boo. I never forget the woman that was so unhappy with herself that she couldn't stand to see a 5-year-old bad bee be happy on her birthday. Mm. It's a cuss word, but I'm not gonna cuss because the BDE Music Network don't play that. But anyways, cuss word. Happy birthday to me, cuss word. And that's the end.
Red,
Yes.
red her to the gods.
I was very angry and I felt like, hey, 5-year-old me could never have said those things.
Mm-hmm.
But 30-something-year-old me, you gonna get the business.
You gonna get this word.
Right. But I appreciate you, Chelsea. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you, where they can book you for your fabulous poetry?
Yes, yes, yes. So guys, you can find me on IG under Diction Junkie. That's DICTION underscore junkie JUNKY. Go ahead and add me. Go ahead and hit that follow button. And then yeah, if you want to holler at me about me doing a little poetry, words of sympathy, you can DM me. I'm also on Facebook under Chelsea Pugh, CHELSEYPOUGH. You can follow me there as well.
Okay, perfect. Chelsea, I appreciate you.
It's no worries. I am honored.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode and another interview. There were a total of 4 young ladies that read from the chapter. So I plan to sit and chat with each of those ladies and chat about the chapter. You can go on Amazon and order A Grown Woman's Game by Candace L. Smith. Or you can cash out Fatabulous 09 PHATABULOUS 09 $25. Put your address in there so I can mail you a signed copy. All
It's
right.
worth it, y'all.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Good night, y'all. Thank you. Good night,
All right.
Candace.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.